What if I told you that a poor man's invention once changed the destiny of a prince, a kingdom, and even a royal marriage? A flying horse, not of flesh and blood but carved out of wood, would one day soar into the skies and carry a young prince into danger. Love and wisdom. This isn't just a fairy tale about magic, it's a story about courage, justice, and the choices that shape our lives. Long ago, there lived a king who ruled over a small realm. His kingdom was not vast, his army not the strongest, but his heart was unmatched. He was known for his fairness, his kindness, and his love for the poor. The people adored him, not because he was powerful, but because he stood beside them in their suffering. And in the palace lived his greatest treasure, his only son. A prince just 12 years old, cheerful and handsome, beloved by all, the kind of child whose smile could light up the entire court. Every day near the palace, a marketplace would come alive. Merchants displayed their goods, craftsmen showed their creations, and people from every corner gathered in bustling crowds. And every evening the king himself walked through that market, not to buy luxuries, but to see if anyone had failed to sell their goods. Whatever was left unsold, he would purchase himself, so that no poor man went home empty-handed. But one evening, as the sun was setting and traders were packing up with joy, the king's habit of kindness led him to a strange discovery. A poor carpenter sat alone by the roadside, head bowed, clutching something hidden under his cloak. And what the king was about to uncover would change his son's life forever. As the king moved through the marketplace that evening, his eyes scanned every stall. Traders were packing their bags, smiling with satisfaction because everything they had brought was sold. But then the vizier whispered to him, "Your Majesty, there is one man left behind. He sits quietly on the roadside, and he hides something beneath his clothes." The king paused. A man with unsold goods? That was unusual. He turned and said, "Then we must see him at once." They approached. The man looked up nervously, his eyes full of both fear and hope. "What do you carry, brother?" the king asked gently. The man hesitated before speaking. Finally, with trembling hands, he revealed what lay beneath his cloak. "Sire, I am a poor carpenter. I have spent 3 long months crafting this wooden horse. I poured my sweat and hunger into it. My children suffered while I worked. And yet not a single soul in this market even looked at it." The king raised an eyebrow. "A wooden horse? For children to play with? 3 months of work for this?" But the carpenter shook his head. His voice grew steadier, almost proud. "No, my king. This is not a toy. This is a horse that can fly, not across the earth, but into the skies themselves. It can take its rider to distant lands in moments." The king and his court burst into murmurs of disbelief. A flying wooden horse? Could such a thing even be real? The carpenter continued, his eyes burning with conviction. "Your Majesty, it is not a lie. Ride it once and you will see for yourself. My creation can lift a man beyond the clouds." The king studied the strange object. Could this poor man truly have created something beyond imagination? Or was it just the desperate claim of a starving craftsman? One thing was certain, the mystery of this wooden horse had only just begun. The king stood before the strange wooden horse, his mind torn between disbelief and curiosity. Could this poor carpenter really have discovered a secret unknown to all men? Still, the king was cautious. "If what you say is true," he told the carpenter, "then proof must be shown. Bring the horse to the open field, and we will see with our own eyes." The carpenter obeyed, carrying the heavy horse to the royal grounds. There, before the king, the vizier, and the young prince, he explained its secrets. "Your Majesty, it is simple. Sit upon the saddle. On its neck are 2 iron handles. Turn the right one forward, and the horse will rise into the sky. To descend, twist the left handle back. At its tail are 2 levers. Pull right, the horse turns right. Pull left, and it turns left. And when you wish to stop, run its wheels along the ground, and it will stand still." Even as the carpenter explained, whispers filled the crowd. Some mocked him, calling it madness. Others stared in awe, half believing, half doubting. The king looked at the contraption and frowned. "This is dangerous," he said firmly. "I will not risk my life or anyone else's for a trick." But then the prince stepped forward. His eyes were wide with excitement, his voice steady but filled with eagerness. "Father, allow me to try it." The king's heart tightened. "No, my son, you are too young. This could end in disaster." Yet the prince, bold and stubborn, insisted. "If the poor man speaks the truth, then let me prove it." Why should we doubt his labor when only a test can reveal the truth? Before the king could stop him, the prince climbed onto the wooden horse. He gripped the iron handles and, without hesitation, turned one forward. In that instant, a strange rumbling echoed from the belly of the horse. Then, to the shock of everyone, it lifted from the ground. The prince rose higher and higher, until the earth seemed to shrink beneath him. The king's face went pale, his heart pounding in terror.
"My son!" he cried.
But the horse soared upward, carrying the boy into the clouds, until he was no more than a speck, and then vanished from sight. Panic swept through the field. The king's knees weakened. In rage and despair, he shouted, "Seize the carpenter! This man has stolen my son from me." The poor craftsman was dragged away in chains. The king's heart was heavy with grief. He feared he had lost his only son forever, but little did he know, the prince's daring ride was only the beginning of an adventure that would change everything. High above the clouds, the young prince clutched the handles of the wooden horse. At first, fear gripped him. What if it never came down? What if he fell? But soon excitement replaced his terror. The wind roared past him, the stars seemed close enough to touch, and the whole world stretched beneath his feet like a painted map. Then, remembering the carpenter's words, he turned the left handle carefully. The horse dipped, lowering toward the earth. Slowly, cautiously, he guided it back until at last, its wheels touched the ground near the palace. When the people saw him return, shouts of amazement rose into the air. The wooden horse was no trick, it was real. The king, however, was overwhelmed with both relief and anger. He embraced his son tightly, his voice trembling. "My child, I thought I had lost you forever." Then he turned to the carpenter, still bound in chains. "You," the king roared, "you put my only son in mortal danger. Tell me, why should I not end your life at once?" The carpenter fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face as he begged, "Mercy, O king. I am a poor man. I created the horse not to harm, but to serve. It was my hope that someone great might see its worth. Forgive me if I caused fear. I only wanted to prove its power." The prince stepped forward. "Father, do not punish him. Without his craft, we would never have known such a marvel. It was my own will to ride it, not his command." The king hesitated. His anger battled with the compassion in his heart. Finally, he declared, "The horse shall be kept in the royal treasury. And as for you, carpenter, your life is spared. But know this, had my son not returned, your punishment would have been terrible." The man bowed low, weeping with gratitude. He had narrowly escaped death. Yet even as peace returned, the prince's eyes lingered on the wooden horse. A seed had been planted in his heart, a thirst for adventure, and the thought of where this magical steed might yet take him. Days passed, but the prince could not forget the thrill of flying. The wooden horse called to him like a secret he could no longer resist. One moonlit night, when the palace was silent and the guards half asleep, he crept to the chamber where the horse was kept. His heart raced as he mounted it once again. He pulled the right handle, and in a rush of wind, the horse leapt into the sky. The stars glittered above, the world shrank below, and the young prince felt freer than ever before. But this time he did not return to the palace. He rode on and on, carried by the currents of air, until at last the spires of a distant kingdom appeared on the horizon. Its domes gleamed under the rising sun, and its gardens stretched as far as the eye could see. Curious, he guided the horse down to a quiet meadow near the city walls. Disguising himself as an ordinary traveler, he wandered into the streets. The city was alive with music, merchants, and color, but one tale was on every tongue. People whispered of a princess, said to be the most beautiful in all the lands. Her eyes shone like midnight stars, her voice was softer than the breeze, but she was locked away in a tower, guarded day and night. No man had ever dared approach her, for the king was fiercely protective of his daughter. The prince's heart quickened. Was this fate? He had flown across the skies, and now, without planning it, he found himself in a land where destiny awaited. And though he tried to turn away, the thought would not leave him. I must see her, even if it cost me everything. The prince could not resist his curiosity. One evening, when the city was wrapped in silence, he mounted the wooden horse once more. With a steady hand, he guided it high above the palace walls until he reached the tower where the princess was said to dwell. Through a lattice window, he caught a glimpse of her, sitting by a golden lamp, reading in the soft glow of the night. Her beauty stunned him. eyes like shimmering jewels, hair cascading like silk, and a face that seemed carved from light itself. For a moment, the prince forgot to breathe. With quiet courage, he maneuvered the horse close to her balcony. The princess gasped when she saw him appear out of the night sky, seated on a flying steed. Fear and wonder mingled in her voice as she whispered, "Who are you? Are you spirit or man?" The prince placed his hand on his chest and bowed. "Neither spirit nor dream, my lady. I am a traveler who has crossed the skies to behold the one whose name is spoken in every corner of the world." Her eyes widened, both alarmed and enchanted. No stranger had ever dared approach her. Yet something about his presence, his bravery, his gentle tone, stirred a feeling she had never known before. "Go," she urged, though her voice trembled. "If my father discovers you, it will mean your death." But the prince smiled softly. "Then let me die seeing the truth of your beauty, for that would be a fate worth embracing." The princess lowered her gaze, hiding the rush of color that rose to her cheeks. Against all reason, against all fear, she stepped closer. And that night, words passed between them. Words of wonder, of dreams, and of longing that neither would ever forget. As dawn crept over the horizon, the prince knew he had found more than adventure. He had found love. For several nights, the prince returned to the tower. He and the princess spoke in hushed tones, sharing secrets and dreams beneath the stars. Their bond deepened quickly, like fire catching dry wood. But in a palace, nothing remains hidden for long. The princess's maid noticed her lady's sudden joy, her restless nights, and the whispers that seemed to drift from the balcony. Fearful of punishment, she carried word to the king. The old ruler was furious. "Who dares approach my daughter?" he thundered. Guards were posted around the tower, and every corner of the palace was searched. But no trace of an intruder could be found. One night, determined to catch the truth, the king himself hid near his daughter's chambers. And just as the stars reached their highest point, he saw it with his own eyes, the shadow of a horse descending from the sky, and upon it, a young man. The king's rage knew no bounds. The guards stormed the tower, seizing the prince before he could escape. The wooden horse was dragged down to the royal courtyard, surrounded by soldiers. "Who are you?" the king demanded, his voice like thunder. "A thief? A sorcerer? Or a spy sent by my enemies?" The prince bowed his head. "I am no spy, no thief. I am a prince of a distant kingdom, carried here by fate. I came not to harm, but because my heart was drawn to your daughter." The hall erupted in chaos. Some ministers whispered, "If he speaks truth, he is noble." Others snarled, "He is a trickster. He must be punished." The king silenced them all. His eyes blazed as he declared, "You will be imprisoned until I learn who you truly are. And if your words prove false, your life will be forfeit," the princess cried out. But her voice was lost in the roar of the guards as the prince was dragged away. The wooden horse, once his freedom, now stood silent, its fate, like his, uncertain. The prince was locked in a dark stone chamber, guarded day and night. Yet even within those walls, his spirit refused to break. He thought of the princess, her voice, her eyes, and he vowed he would not leave her behind. The king, meanwhile, tried to uncover the truth. Messengers were sent across kingdoms to inquire about this mysterious young man. But before any word could return, the princess herself devised a daring plan. One night, she bribed the guards with jewels and gold, whispering, "Tell no one, and let me see him one last time." Desperate for wealth, they agreed. In the silence of the dungeon, she appeared before the prince. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "You should not have risked everything for me," she said. "Now your life is in danger." The prince took her hands. "If I had stayed away, my heart would have been in greater danger." "Love is worth every risk." Then he revealed his plan. "The horse still rests in the courtyard. When the guards least expect it, we must reach it together. Its power is our only escape." As dawn approached, the chance came. The guards, heavy with wine, slumped against the walls. Moving swiftly, the prince and princess slipped through the shadows, her cloak concealing their faces. The wooden horse gleamed faintly under the moonlight, as though waiting for them. They climbed upon it, he at the helm, she clinging to his side. With one firm pull of the handle, the horse soared upward, rising into the night sky like a star set free. Below, cries of alarm erupted. The king's men shouted, arrows flew, torches blazed, but it was too late. The lovers had vanished into the heavens, Their fate was no longer bound by walls nor chains, nor the wrath of kings. It now belonged to the skies. The wooden horse soared across oceans, mountains, and deserts, carrying the prince and princess far beyond the reach of her father's fury. At last, after many days and nights, the shining spires of the prince's homeland came into view. When the king and queen saw their son return, alive, unharmed, and with a radiant princess by his side, the palace erupted in joy. The people celebrated with music and feasting, marveling not only at the beauty of the maiden, but also at the miracle of the flying horse that had brought her. The prince told his tale of the distant kingdom, the tower, the trial, and the daring escape. Some gasped in wonder, others shook their heads in disbelief, but all agreed fate had carried him on a journey no ordinary man could have survived. The princess, though torn from her father's land, found peace in her new home. The kindness of the people and the devotion of the prince eased her sorrow. In time, love blossomed into joy, and the two were wed in a celebration that lasted 40 days and nights. As for the wooden horse, it was placed in the royal treasury, guarded as the kingdom's greatest treasure. Some called it a marvel of science, others a gift of magic, but to the prince and princess it was more than that. It was the winged steed that had carried them into destiny, and so the tale spread far and wide, told by travelers and minstrels, whispered in marketplaces, and written in the pages of history. Some said it was merely a fable, others swore it was truth, but one lesson remained certain, that courage, guided by love, can turn even the strangest of wonders into a path toward freedom.